Hello, everyone. It's good to see everyone arriving. My name's Brendan. We're just finishing setting up here and gonna hand you over to Keith and John soon. If you haven't got your coffee or a cup of tea or something yet, now's the time to grab it. And we'll be starting in about 1 minute. Also, can I ask to make sure that you are on mute for the duration of the presentation? And yeah, we'll have some questions. If you've got any questions, do stick them in the chat. I'm going to be monitoring the chat and making sure we've, kind of get all your questions answered during the Q&A session.
Okay, Brendan, let's move on to the agenda. Okay, so good morning, everybody, and welcome to what is April Fool's Day, but hopefully this will be totally worthwhile, and it certainly isn't a joke. But the agenda starts really with John and myself just saying hello quickly and just giving you some background around the why. We sort of like started the Us and Us, and we're also going to be introducing some of the collective and the support that's on offer to everybody. We got a fantastic guest speaker, Polly Bianchi. She's going to be sharing sort of like some insights from a charity perspective, which I hope everyone will find incredibly insightful. We're going to then hand over to Claire Daniels from Massive to share just the process and our thought process around how we can all help each other to survive and thrive in what is a very difficult situation right now. As Brendan mentioned, we're going to be then moving on to a Q&A session, about 5 to 10 minutes, and trying to answer as many questions as possible. So please pop them into the chat. And then we're just going to do a final sign off. Next slide, please, Brendan. So first of all, hello. My name is Keith Williams. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Fundraising. It's so good to be connected with you all. Unfortunately, it's not in great circumstances, but all the same, hello. I hope you had your coffee, your tea, whatever drink of your choice, and maybe you have some pastries too. John, over to you. You're on mute, John.
Okay, that's not a great start, is it? I guess ready to add to that. Morning to everybody. I'm John. I'm one of the partners at Massive. And yeah, as Keith said, pleased to meet you all. Wish it was under better circumstances, but hopefully you'll find the next hour useful and instructive over what we do in the next few weeks.
Brilliant. Thanks, John. So this is a situation that we're all familiar with, but I just thought it'd be worthwhile giving real context to the situation we find ourselves in. You know, on the 9th of March, you know, like many of us, you know, we could see from massive mass participation events still quite confident in, excuse me, proceeding with their events. But then literally 3 days later, we're seeing, you know, the London Marathon postponed the event to October. And then really the domino effects, you know, happened from other events. That just goes to show the rates of change and how COVID-19 just, you know, changed our world very, very quickly. And then really, you know, on the same day, and I'm sure in the subsequent weeks and days, you know, every single charity likely is being affected by event fundraising, but I think it's just not event fundraising. It's more than that. It's nearly every campaign that charities have. So there's a massive uncertainty with charities of what to do. And that was the first premise. Next slide, Brendan. Over to you, John.
Yeah, I don't think I was going to pick up, but I think you've covered most of it really. I guess that point of when we thought it couldn't get worse, it did. And what initially started as, I guess, what felt like a problem for events and campaigns, you've seen the news, it becomes depressing enough, but we're talking about future restrictions, on and off lockdown, and it's starting to look, there's talk around that sort of recession. So I guess what we started out was there might be a problem for events and events fundraising. It now feels that we're moving into a space where there's issues not with just people's opportunities to give, but with their ability to give as the kind of financial crisis may hit after this. So, it looks like it's going to go on for a few weeks, but it felt for us, and speaking to Keith, that as part of the sector and as kind of being kind of built into the sector, that we feel we wanted to do whatever we could to help, and that's probably why we're here today.
Thanks, John. So just really like everybody else on the call today and everyone around the world, I and we, just couldn't sit back and do nothing. We had to step up and support the sector. So next slide, Brendan. So before the world changed, we were and still are the full stack digital fundraising platform for charities, providing, beautiful front end consumer experiences and back end capabilities. Next slide, Brendan. But that was really just not enough. We just felt that that those capabilities that we built, the full stack, was just available to just some charities, not all. So just like we could see other, organizations stepping up, like Dyson, where they adapted, redeployed some to help with 10,000 ventilators. We felt that we needed to do our bit and not leave any charities behind. So we spent the same 2 weeks redeploying some development team to build a light stack version of what we do, so we could literally give the same creativity and freedom from a digital perspective to every charity, whether they're small, medium or large, because these are unprecedented times and we just didn't want to leave any charity behind. So we created what we call just free packages, completely free, where a brand can still represent themselves in either a DIY campaign, a virtual campaign across activity or fundraising or whatever that activity was. Social appeals, whether it's a towel selfie or just general appeals just to ask for help, because charities need vital funds, and it wasn't a simple just donate or fundraise for us to help our charity survive. Next slide. So what was interesting from that, and we launched the free campaign. I hope you all can hear me. We launched a free campaign, and what was evident is that a platform is just one thing, and it just won't simply determine the success of a charity and a campaign. And what we kept on hearing back from charities was, what is the idea? What should we do? Will it work? How do we launch it to our current supporters? Does it relate? How do we acquire new supporters? Will this, and now there's a crowded market where charities are all doing virtual, they're all doing a particular thing. Is it going to resonate? And then also thinking about, the short term and filling an income gap for the next few months, but also not, confusing supporters or confusing the organization, for the long term, but really just making sure that, whatever efforts are put in, they have to be meaningful. Not wasting time for the now and in the future. And these are questions that was being asked, and we just kept getting these themes come up. So we just decided that, it just wasn't about the platform. The help needed was so much bigger than that. Next slide.
And I guess that's where we came in. So all of those questions, again, before this happened, way back, 2 or 3 weeks ago, they were all things that we could help people with, and they still can, and we still can. We focus on that kind of rational kind of approach of defining what success looks like for people, helping them to understand their audience, designing the right solution for them, and delivering their kind of campaigns in the right way for each client. But I suppose what we heard a lot when we were speaking to Keith, the kind of 3 things we we sort of saw there was a huge increase in the number of inquiries we were getting. And it became apparent to us that we couldn't help everybody in the way that we wanted to. But also there was a bit of not quite a panic, but a bit of urgency in the air. And what we heard was there's a risk of people, and felt there was a risk of people kind of making poor sort of strategic decisions, you know, in their confusion or in their desperation to fix something, possibility of launching the wrong campaigns. And again, with the demand to do something new and do it now, there was a risk that they're going to be executed badly. And our main concern was really that could make the financial situation that people face even worse. So we wanted to help. There is doom and gloom out there, but for us, we're optimists. We think there's always an opportunity out there. We're already seeing that there are new behaviours emerging. You know, attitudes to tech are changing. People are being forced to change. You know, we think there's going to be a legacy of the lockdown. You know, when my 80-year-old relatives can set up a Zoom meeting, it is clear that things are changing, and I think they're going to stay changed. So, and I guess in terms of what we're seeing with the virus and people's reaction to it, what we're seeing is a great coming together of community, and I think that's central to a lot of what we do. We're seeing the best of people, so it feels like there's new opportunities, and in a changing market, there's got to be the opportunity to do things differently. So what we wanted to do was create a sort of mini consultation process for people. So we've, as part of this collective, offering a kind of 2-hour consultation for free with people to sort of scoop up all that we know and bring that to people so they can start to make the right decisions. They can have the right kind of reactions to this, and they can capitalize on the opportunities as best we can, so that we can offer kind of all of those organizations that need the support the opportunity to make the most of what is clearly not a great situation. I guess next slide, Brendan. And I suppose then the next thing really for us is, we know that our approach works. We know that having ideas grounded in audience, understanding and insight that fit with your organizations works. Having the right skills and the right platform, yeah, they're what will make it work. And having the right positioning for the offer and great marketing activity are what makes a successful campaign. And I think between us and fundraising on an ordinary day, we could probably make that work for people, but these don't feel like ordinary circumstances. So yes, we can offer that, but what we wanted to do was bring a kind of bigger pool of expertise together to make sure that we're able to share experience, bring more learnings into it, to make people quickly react to the situation we find ourselves, enable people to connect and help as many people and have as big an impact as possible as we can in the kind of weeks and months ahead. Keith.
Thanks, John. So just the last couple of slides from me until we pass over to Polly. So this is not just a UK issue, although, you know, we want to focus, but I think there's so much that we can learn across the world. So the collective was more about how do we leverage all of the talent that we have in the UK, but also all of the incredible people all around the world. So you'll see the collective being built with organizations that have offices, you know, in Australia, in the US, in the UK, in France, you know, in other markets, because sometimes, you know, there's some markets that are maybe behind where we are or in front of where we are. And I think it's about us all putting together and sharing what we know and sharing the capabilities. And the point about the collective is that it's got to be authentic and it's got to be for the right reasons. And that's why we've come in and offering free services, and other organizations are offering their services too. So if you jump to the next slide, I'll just touch on a few of them. And John and Claire, if you want to kind of lift out any more, but you can see here. So you can see here that we've got obviously fundraising and massive, but we've got Sector Press. We've also got you know, Julie for more strategic. That's going to be focused on community fundraising and more. We've got the likes of Rostify, who are a volunteer management solution. And we know just recently in the UK, I think it's 750,000 people have signed up to be volunteers. And I think that's important to, one, support a sector or an industry or a charity, but also I think it's going to be important for people to do something for mental health reasons. And I think there's a lot to learn and gain from volunteers. We've also got British Heart Foundation, where we're doing charity to charity mentoring. We've got Find a Race. They're offering insights around their platform, what people are searching for. These are the types of information we, as an industry, need to know. What are people looking for? What are people wanting to find out and do? Because they are the behaviors we want to lift out and share with each other, so we can be precise on our campaigns. We're also on Find a Race. I think they're going to be pushing out free event promotion to charities, just so that they can help promote and get audience into different types of events. Anything else to pick out before we pass over to Polly?
We're just also delighted to have obviously UK fundraising, but also WPNC on board, who are going to be offering a lot around individual campaigns. So I think, as we said at the beginning, whereas we might have started here thinking that this was an event problem, it's quickly become a fundraising problem across the sector. So I'm delighted to have WPNC on board, and I believe we've got quite a few new partners on the way.
Great. And if anyone is out there, sorry, John.
Yeah, I think I would add that I think Keith used a great phrase that we're building the plane while we're flying it. So I think it's around bringing people on that are most useful to the group, and people that we speak to, what are they needing? So we bring more people in, and we're open to more members joining. Yesterday, we had some questions around media buying. So we're happy to bring the Kite Factory on, a media buying agency. They're bringing on board with the collective, so they'll be able to offer advice. So it does feel like it's a growing feast. People that are on this webinar, if they feel there's something missing from that, we can add to it. It's about the more people we can bring onto this, the bigger the impact we can have, and that's what we want to achieve.
Yes, thank you, John. I'll just move on to Polly, but before that, we're also looking for organisations that do mass surveys or insights on the consumer. So we want to make sure that we're really sophisticated in the support that we give, but also in the same way, very practical and keeping sometimes things very simple. And I'm sure Claire's going to come to that later. But over to you, Polly. And by the way, Polly, thank you so much for sparing your time with us. Over to you.
No worries at all. Morning, everyone. I hope everyone's keeping safe and well. Just a massive thank you to Claire, John, Keith and Brendan for thinking of this initiative. I know it's going to be immensely helpful for my organisation, but hopefully other organisations across the sector. Firstly, I'm really glad to hear and see on the chat that people haven't lost their sense of humour. I saw wine being referenced only 6 minutes into the call, so I was quite happy to see that. I just wanted to talk a little bit, if it's helpful to other people in the sector, about what WWF has seen happen over the last couple of weeks, what we think we might be able to do, and how we try and future-proof ourselves as well, because this isn't going to be something which we originally thought was just going to be a week or two. It is going to last a couple of months, and how do we ready ourselves for that? So what's taken a hit for us internally? Much like probably most of you in the sector, we've lost all of our face-to-face recruitment. With the lockdown, obviously our face-to-face fundraisers are unable to do their job. And for us, that's a huge income hit. We're probably going to see that until the end of this year. We have seen a drop in average value. John kind of touched on that with a couple of his graphs. And again, that's going to affect our in-year income. We have, although, seen only a small decrease in volume. So we are seeing that the people that want to give are still giving, but just at a much lower amount and how much they can afford at the moment. Again, like John said, we've had to pause a lot of our mass events and any large launches, any PR launches or any media launches that we've got coming up. So it has massively changed not only our recruitment channel mix, but also our plans for the rest of the financial year. But what we're going to do about it? Brendan, could you switch? Thank you. We're having to adapt to where people are consuming their media. I think everyone is now glued to their phone at the moment, or they're watching television. We're having to go to those recruitment channels where we know we can get inside people's houses. What we have noticed is we're reaching out to our agencies as well. We use DTV for our DRTV program, and we're lucky enough to be part of a network at WWF. So we've been speaking to our Asian colleagues, and obviously they're a couple of months ahead in terms of the crisis, but what they've seen is a massive increase in their DRTV program, not only in terms of response rates, but also in terms of volume and spend. So what we're starting to do is adding and redeploying some of our funds into these types of channels. So DRTV, digital advertising, PPC, paid social. We're starting to shift some of this money to areas where we know that people are consuming that media. We've got quite a large portfolio of products, but what we're doing is starting to push more spend into the products that are relevant to people's lives at the moment. So for us, that's our children's products. I know within our household, we are desperate to try and keep our children entertained whilst homeschooling, whilst being educational. So listening to all of that feedback, we're putting more of our efforts into our adoption program, but also our premium product, Amazing Planet, which is educational, something that they can stay inside and do, but also gives parents a little bit of a break whilst trying to work at home. We're also trying to test new things. So I know that at home, we're also using Spotify, having the radio on. How can we get into people's daily lives as they've changed so much recently? So we're looking into Alexa, adding a few more skills onto there, and also redeploying radio advertising. We're also trying to incentivize our lead generation activity. We've seen our contact rate for our TM conversion campaigns go up massively. Mainly because people are at home and their phone's only a couple of meters away from them at any given time. And we were trying to do things that are fun, trying to entertain people in these hard times. So how can we do things like quizzes where we can engage the public, but also share our mission as our organisation to try and get people involved. And what are we thinking about in the future? I think like most of us, we're having to suddenly start doing reforecasts and our next financial year budgeting. And for me, that's not only just doing my usual forecast, but it's how do we start to scenario plan that what the next 12 months look like. So making sure that we're readying ourselves for what future could look like as it is at the moment, but what if things keep taking a downward turn? How are we going to redeploy that money, and how are we going to maintain that income moving forward? Also utilising what our partners have. We've got, luckily, a lot of partners, corporate partners. How can we utilise their unique selling points and their audiences to further our mission? So we're trying to think more creatively about how we utilise those relationships. We haven't seen the full effect probably yet of what this crisis is going to do to our attrition rates, but I think everyone is on the same understanding that it is going to take a hit. So how can we be clever about trying to ensure that people don't cancel their regular gifts with us, or how can we offer different products to them that are more useful to their lifestyle? How can we offer downgrades, payment breaks, etc., like most mortgage companies, etc.? How can we follow the trend of the rest of the UK and making sure that charities aren't different from that? But for us, we have a huge amount of people that are actually out in the field trying to deliver change in the world, and we're trying to plan what that looks like in terms of people not being able to go out to fulfill our mission to ensure that our wildlife is protected, our safe spaces are still there. So that's taking up a huge amount of our time. And a bit like John was talking about, and also I think Claire's going to mention it as well, how do we utilise our virtual products more? We're making sure that we're utilising things that we've already got off the ground, like our AR products, virtual reality, etc. How can we utilise them a bit better, and how can we use those kind of things in our marketing to maintain that income? And then finally, commercial offerings, making sure that we are relevant. How can we bring our unique selling points, things that maybe we haven't thought about in the past, like podcasts, or utilising the scientific people that we have internally, or also our schools and engagement teams? How can we look at the products that we already have, but maybe with a different lens, and how can we offer that to people in the future? So hopefully that was that was also helpful, just kind of sharing where we're at as an organisation. Hugely proud to be part of this collective, and I think this will be beneficial to the whole sector, and very happy to be part of it.
Thanks, Polly. Apologies in advance that I don't have the same fancy background as everybody else. I'm just going to talk a little bit about, so this webinar is very much an introduction to the collective. It isn't about giving all of the answers, and we don't have all of the answers right now. And I think, as John said, you know, we're certainly building the plane as we fly. But we wanted to share just some of the things that are probably worth thinking about at the moment. Questions that you can ask and actions that can help. I'm also going to talk to you a little bit about how to actually get involved with the collective and how to access that support. So what to think about right now? Hopefully some of this is probably a little bit obvious, but now is never been more important time than now to work out who your audience are. So I think, to Keith's point, we can't jump straight into just throwing things out of the door. If you want to have success right now, it does have to be thought through. So you might not have all your ducks in the row, but having some of the ducks in the row are absolutely going to help. And those people who take the time to do that and to be a little bit more strategic in their decision making, I think will be the people that see success as we come out of the other side of this. As many people, you know, as Polly was just saying, people are reducing the number of actions they take, or they're reducing the amount of their disposable income that they might give, or they just have less disposable income. There's never been a better time to understand exactly who are the people that are most likely to support you, who are the people who are most likely to support your organisation, and to understand them and to focus on who those people are. What's their life like right now? What do they need? What has changed? I think, as Polly was just saying, obviously people are at home more, obviously people are consuming media differently. Furloughed people can volunteer. So that's a really interesting thing. You've got people who suddenly have, you know, okay, not, you know, they're not rolling in it, you know, they haven't got loads of money or whatever, but they've suddenly got loads of time on their hands. So what can they do to support you as an organisation? What role can you play in their life right now? I think at a time when, yes, there's lots and lots of celebrities online talking about how they're going to take up 3 different new languages and learn the harpsichord. There's also a lot of people, certainly like we are, who are busier than ever. They're trying to homeschool, they're trying to work, they're fighting fires in the face of economic uncertainty. So how, as a charity, can you support their life? Can you add value to their life at the moment, rather than be another ask, another busy thing on their schedule? So really thinking about that when it comes to ideation, when it comes to coming up with the solutions that you're going to try, rather than necessarily just throwing something out there and hoping that it will stick. And then thinking about capabilities. So, you know, we've got permission to do things a little bit differently, potentially. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but we have the opportunity, and people are going to want to move quickly and throw things out of the door. So when you're trying to think about what the idea is of the thing that you might do, whether that's adapt something you've already got, launch a new product, launch an appeal, what can you build? What do you have as your capabilities internally, and what can you access? And we're really hoping that this is where the collective can come into its own, that we can provide services. Obviously fundraising can provide platforms. There are people who can provide advice about how to upskill people internally, or how to access the capabilities that you need in order to deliver on the success that you're looking for. And knowing what success looks like, that's really, really important. So there's absolutely a time to experiment right now, but it really is also important that you know what you're aiming for, because I think, as John was saying right at the beginning, this situation is potentially bigger than we all realised, certainly when we kicked off pulling the collective together. And therefore, understanding at this moment in time what's going to take you closest to success, being strategic about that thinking, is going to be really valuable. Oh, thanks. So just thought I'd share some things that other people are doing right now. I'm sure you've seen lots of different things, even in your own Instagram and Facebook feeds, or in the industry press. But there seems to be kind of 3 camps of ideas that we're seeing coming out. Apologies. We have some people who are just keeping it really simple. I think this is a fantastic example that came through fundraising, actually. Wayside Chapel, they're in Australia. They're a homeless charity, and they've absolutely just said, do you know what, right now, we can't close, we can't isolate, and we've got to help others survive. A really simple appeal launched. Within 4 hours, they'd raised 60,000, I've written pounds. Is that pounds? £60,000. And I think that's now up to closer to 200,000 just a couple of days later. So actually really not overcomplicating it. They didn't need to create a whole suite of virtual fundraising products. They didn't have to get people out there running or walking or, you know, wearing a hat on their head. Actually, they just needed to state the need right now and ask people to support, and people have absolutely come forward for them. The other thing that we're seeing is people adapting their existing offer. So, for example, Brain Tumor Research have their Wear a Hat Day. I believe it was on the 27th of March. So they very quickly changed their marketing to hat lovers do it online. And they've encouraged people to have hat wearing parties on Zoom, to run quizzes, to do community fundraising in their homes and virtually in order to still support the charity. And as is the nature with community fundraising, I don't know that all the income is in yet, but I'm really hoping that they'll see that they manage to maintain their income in difficult times. And the third thing that we're seeing is people just doing things completely differently altogether. So launching whole new products at this time. There's a couple of examples here. One of them is Headway East London, launching a Donate Your Commute product. So understanding the needs of their audience, understanding their lives at the moment. They're no longer spending that money on that commute. What can they do? And can they donate that money at the time? It makes them feel fresh and relevant. When that pops up in your newsfeed, it doesn't feel like just another thing that I'm being asked to do. It's relevant to the life that I'm living right now, and that's really interesting. Likewise, taking virtual fundraising into the home. I love the towel challenge from the Stroke Foundation. It's really actually quite a simple ask, that asking people to make a donation, to wear a towel, take a photo and post it on social media. But it's something that you've almost got no excuse to not do at this time. And particularly, I think, as the rise of TikTok is happening and people are looking for ways to stay entertained and to do fun things, that kind of thing could be really interesting for charities at the moment to be in the mix at that time. So what's the silver lining? I think there's a lot of talking here about loss of income, cancelled events, challenges for services that are going to be needed more than ever and less fundraising to support them. But there's also some silver linings in the mix. There are lots of brilliant memes on the internet at the moment. But I think there's two key things here. It's an excuse and an opportunity to experiment. I absolutely love that meme, but it's very, very true. Suddenly we're all on Zoom, you know, like John said, his 80-year-old relatives are suddenly doing Zoom calls. We've all been suddenly forced to be a lot more digital. So what are all those digital fundraising ideas that you've been a little bit scared to try before? How can you try something new or do something different? We're forced into this new situation. So actually, this is an opportunity to experiment and give yourself permission to fail. And also we're being forced to do things differently. You know, if Boris Johnson can work from home and run his cabinet meetings via Zoom or what, there are other available technology suppliers, obviously, then, you know, so can we. I think in the charity sector, we all know that we're a little bit guilty sometimes of saying, oh, but that's the way that we've always done things, or we've tried that before, but it hasn't worked. This is the time actually to try and do things differently. We have flexibility on how we do things. How can you change processes internally? I'd be interested to hear from Polly actually on the questions, you know, how a WWF, for example,
I think we might have just lost Claire. Yeah, while we just wait for her to come back. Polly, I think what she was about to ask you was how you are doing things differently.
Well, we're living on Zoom, much like the rest of the UK. I know that the vast majority of my day is on Zoom. We're having to be much more agile and using different technologies to push things through. We use Slack internally. I don't know about other people in other organizations, but that's actually become hugely helpful to try and get projects out door much, much quicker. We have also started putting more documentation together. I know it's the horrible admin word, but knowing whose roles and responsibilities are for each project, and I've certainly done this within my own team, is giving my team the autonomy to try new things. I know in some organizations it's incredibly hard to test new things or get it past the board, whether that's the trustees or senior leadership, etc. But allowing people to have that autonomy to get things up and testing, fail fast, and make sure that when something is working, having that available budget to put into projects. That's how we're starting at the moment. I mean, we're only 3 weeks in, but that's been really successful for us so far.
Can I direct the same question to Keith and John as well, just to buy some time for Claire to get back online?
I was just going to say, pick up on a Polly comments around Slack. I think one thing that we are doing very well, but also need to probably continue to do better, is just make sure we're connecting with our teammates regularly. I've been so impressed. So just at fundraising, we're doing 3 times a day whips, work in progress, whereby we have a schedule at 9, 12, and 4, where we all jump on. We make sure that we actually have our faces. Sometimes our faces, like mine, doesn't look that great at 9 o'clock in the morning. But it's important that we still connect and still get the work done, because now more than ever, we all need to be sort of like, having that pace to get stuff done, because it's incredibly serious of the work that we need to do. So that was my point around ensuring we're connecting with our team, but also ensuring that we are giving the freedom to our team to make sure they can get outside. Don't put time pressures on people, let them have an hour, 2 hours, whatever they need to sort of like escape, because their environments have changed. So I think we just need to be looking after people even more so now than ever.
I'm back.
Oh, welcome back, Claire.
Sorry about that.
That was some filler. We did some filler there, so all good.
Fantastic. Yes, I'm hoping you've covered this in my absence, but I was just talking about particularly around sign-off processes and how you give people permission at this time to be more agile and to get things out of the door quickly, because we need to take the opportunity to raise the money that we can, and we need to take the opportunity to not get left behind, I think, in a situation that's changing quite rapidly. Next slide.
Oh, yeah.
Fab. I just really like this quote. It's better to do something imperfectly than do nothing perfectly. And I think that's what this is all about. It's a very fine balance between jumping into the mix and doing something and getting something out of the door, as people were doing at the beginning, I think, Keith, and it's kind of tells the narrative of the collective really nicely. People jumping in and trying to launch something new and virtual, but they're not really knowing what the idea needed to be. So you absolutely do need to be strategic. We do need to be audience-led, but it's also better to do something than to do nothing. And at this moment in time, when we're seeing such huge numbers being touted around about the potential economic failures, 48% of fundraising income potentially going, as being reported yesterday in industry press, those people that do nothing are going to get left behind. They're going to struggle. So it's absolutely important, I think, to take action, and to take action wisely, yes, but to do something and not do nothing. So just going to talk to you a little bit about how to get support from the collective, and also how we'd like you guys to help us grow the collective and make this something that could really make a difference in the sector at this time. So yeah, there's lots of different pieces of the puzzle. There's lots of different people offering to help. As we've said, we're getting new partners on board every single day. So right now, if you think that we can help you, whether that's with technology, whether that's with some strategic support, whether that's with some of the offerings from, for example, WPNC or Kite Factory, the easiest thing to do is to get in touch, and we've got a form where you can tell us a little bit about what some of your challenges are and what you need help with right now. And then we'll point you in the right direction of support. So someone from this group of people who are hosting this webinar will give you a call and will speak to you about how we can help and make sure that you're put in contact with the right people. So there's a link there, and I believe also, Brendan, we're going to send that link around to people after this webinar. You can also find this form and all of the information on the website. And watch out for future webinars. So this has been an overview webinar, just an introduction to what we're doing, but we're really hoping to create a lot more content that's going to be really useful for people at this time. So for smaller charities potentially, or charities who haven't tried virtual fundraising before, we're going to pull together a beginner's guide to virtual fundraising. We're going to pull together some thoughts on launching an appeal. We're going to have a webinar on community engagement at this time and how to galvanize all of those people with maybe a bit more free time on their hands. And we're hoping to build an even bigger program of that. So equally, if you fill in that Contact Us and Us form, you can be added to the list of people who will receive information about future webinars, and also stay on top of our LinkedIn, social media, and on the website. And then how you can help us. And we want to get more partners on board. We want to fill more pieces of the puzzle. So tell people about it. If you could all go back to your colleague or to other departments in your organisations, or to other organisations, and let other people know what we're doing and spread the word, that would be really helpful to us. The more people we can get involved, the more we can share learnings, the more that we can all have more success. Let potential partners know. So if you're working with agencies or experts or fantastic freelancers, or people who you've been working with who you think would be able to add some value to the collective, they might be able to offer some support or advice for other organisations, please tell them about us. Please get them to get in contact, and we'd love to have them as part of the collective. And give us some feedback. So we're going to have some Q&As in a minute. So that's an opportunity absolutely for you to ask questions and tell us a little bit about what you need right now. But also we're going to send around a form after this webinar. Please do let us know what content you want to see. Let us know what we can do better and what we can do differently. And we will keep building this plane as best we can as we move along.
Great, thank you very much, Claire. Keith, was there something you wanted to add?
No, I think Claire definitely touched on that. We've got so many partners and so many pieces of content, and we just want to make sure whatever we do is useful. So any ideas of content or information that would be good to anybody, just let us know what that would be, and we'll just find someone and the information to put into your hands.
Okay, great. So I guess this is a good chance for anyone who does have any questions, to submit them through the chat window, and I'll read them out and direct them to the group. But yeah, I mean, I think in the meantime, we'll give it a couple of minutes so you can kind of, submit any questions. But for now, I think it's just to talk about it, kind of the wild ride it's been for us for this past 2 weeks. We keep on talking about what it's like been like building the plane as we fly, but it's really been a fantastic journey. For me in particular, having I'm started at fundraising only 2 weeks ago as the marketing director, and we've in that time fundraising, we've launched our free platform offer. And realized so quickly about the importance of the ideation and strategy process and how drastic that need is. I can see the first question, brilliant. Jane says, I'd love to have someone from the collective speak on the charity event specialist Facebook group I've set up. Perhaps a quick Q&A, Claire or John?
Yeah, sure, that's not a problem. Lovely to see you too, Jane.
Guy, thank you for trying to bring parts of the sector together. Very welcome, Guy. Hopefully we'll do more of it.
I think, Brendan, thank you, Guy. Thank you for everyone's comments. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. We have 2 minutes left, I think, on the schedule. So maybe if there are any questions that come to your mind, excuse me, after this webinar, just shoot them over to the collective, But let's just probably wrap up with the final couple of slides, Brendan.
Sure. Just before we do, we've got one question from John there. What time frame would you recommend working to launch a virtual event product?
Good question.
Good question. I think from a platform, I could, and then John and Claire could talk around the ideation and launch. Depends on what you need, but now the templates that we've got are between 1 to 2 days, depending on content that you have. So quite quickly on our side.
Yeah, I think that's interesting actually. We just had someone comment say they did it in 2 weeks because we had to. I think the answer that we would have given you 2 months ago and the answer we give you today are completely different. As Keith said, the technology can happen quite quickly. The marketing planning and getting something out there can happen quite quickly. It probably comes down to how quickly you can enable things internally. So back to the bit I was saying before about sign-off processes and having permission to make things happen. And that's probably going to be the thing that slows you down more than it is coming up with the right idea or getting the technology out there. But that's why we're offering that 2 hours consultancy so that we can help people with that initial thinking, if that's helpful.
Great. Let's move on to the final slide, Brendan.
Okay.
And then we can look to wrap.
Keith, do you want to introduce the video?
No, well, I will introduce this, that there's a friend of mine, Mark White, from your town, who does this beautiful community run, shared this with me. So I'm going to give him credit to sharing this video with me, but I think the video will do all the talking.
Okay.
The coronavirus crisis is changing life as we know it dramatically. I can't wait for a year's time when all of this is a distant memory. And there is a corona baby boom as all the lovers were living. And there is a rise in small businesses as all the entrepreneurs have a moment of stillness and creativity. And all the children remember nothing but a time when all the mums and dads were at home drawing and playing ball games, and we remember it as the time we all got to stop and be present. We will remember the time our health was our first priority. And people learned new ways to use fresh produce to feed their families. We remember the laughter and fun on TikTok, FaceTiming with our friends and family each day, date nights in the house, and home PE workouts with Joe Wicks. A time our real heroes in the NHS urged us to stay at home for the greater good, and our country showing their support by turning Wembley and the Angel of the North blue. And we were all forced to think outside the box and dream up new things and reinvent old ways. And for once, even amongst the chaos, there was community. There was a global rise in togetherness. And as the streets were quiet, our homes were bustling with love and laughter. That time is coming soon, just like any other crisis before it. This will all be a distant memory. A thing we soon listen to our children discuss in classrooms, or once was, that we share with our grandchildren. So to you, I know it's unsettling, but focus on the silver lining. We're all in this together, and there's so much beauty to see.
Just from me, thank you everybody that joined this morning. We really appreciate your time. Hopefully it's been useful. And the last thing I would say is please stay safe and healthy. And thank you.
Yeah, likewise, Keith. Same from us. Thank you. Stay safe and healthy. We look forward to working with a lot of you in the weeks ahead.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Thank you to Polly, especially for coming and talking for us. Thank you, Claire. Yeah, if anyone does have any questions, we'll be sending around a feedback form. We'd love to hear your thoughts about this session as well. As Claire said, we've got more webinars planned, and we want to make sure that these are being as helpful as possible. I saw your comment, Greg. Thank you very much for that offer. I will be in touch, as Claire said. Any ideas, any contributions to inform us further to help us support the sector, it's all welcome. But yeah, thanks very much. And with that, I'm going to end the session. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you. Cheers, guys.